Hi, my name is Siofra Egan. I graduated from NCAD in 2024. I graduated from sculpture. But my practice largely surrounds themes around minor languages, the Irish language in particular, examining moments of slippage, mistranslation, questioning kind of ideas around legibility and opacity, just really embracing those kind of misrepresented moments between two languages. So I actually spent a good while in the Gaeltacht. I went down, was it 3 or 4 summers in a row?
Okay.
So, and I went to...
Was it in Galway that you went to?
Yeah. In
Rossmuck
was where I went,
okay.
yeah. So it was
how was
really...
How was your band on tea?
It's actually lovely, really nice. Very, like, mammy. It's really found a love for the language, and obviously my Irish isn't brilliant, but I kind of think that, especially with kind of more minor languages, it's more communicating than direct translation is the idea anyway. There was an aspect of almost like kind of imposter syndrome around that as well, around how I spoke and my like kind of gloss, like my accent.
Okay.
I remember like looking at people from Galway and being like, even the way they say my name in Irish is so beautiful, and just being like, I don't talk like that. So there was that kind of feeling, but then even through examining the language through my work and things like that, just kind of realized that it's about kind of embracing that other space and that kind of connection with yourself and your identity, rather than being like correct all the time and saying things the right way. Even in this work, I kind of looked at language maybe a little bit more abstractly than I would have before, kind of drawing parallels between these kind of poor images that I was talking about with a kind of a minor language. So images that are a little bit more blurred, their resolution isn't as good, and they kind of embody maybe more of a lived experience. They kind of refuse to be interpreted in any one way, and refuse to kind of be flattened by the commodification of our culture, of the internet, of having the kind of repeating motif throughout as well. Like certain images are replicated, but are distorted in a way. So there's kind of, re-uploaded, reformatted versions of each other, all kind of existing together to create this very kind of chaotic and maybe hard to decipher thing. But when you kind of examining it in the same way as a minor language, when you hone in on that one space, there's actually a lot to be gained from that, and a lot of kind of lived experience and insight in that way. Even textiles kind of being even considered a craft in a way, like to me that has its own kind of subversive quality around bringing that into a fine art context. And even, I'm not like trained, I guess, in textiles. Like a lot of my skills would have come from like learning from my mum or my granny growing up, of firstly how to knit and how to sew, and then even when I was younger, one of my Christmas presents, I got a sewing machine, and that kind of sparked this ongoing interest that I didn't really revisit again until kind of the start of final year. Before making the piece, I was making sort of smaller quilted objects and like kind of just playing with how the fabric itself can manipulate the images to kind of get different image qualities that I was looking for. And then just for the degree show, I went large with it and kind of just carried through those hybridized kind of skills I had learned through my mum and my granny, and then brought them all together and sewed them all up. Yeah, I think time is always like a big aspect of my work. Like everything I do takes quite a while. It's quite meticulous in kind of various different ways. Not necessarily always like very detailed, but the process is always quite time consuming, because even with the quilt, once it's fully assembled, you have to go back over it again to get those kind of the quilted effect. Like you have to put the 3 layers together. So even when I thought I was done with this, I wasn't done. So it's this kind of ongoing process that I do like spending a long time with my work. So I mean, hand sewing quilts, I'm going to be with the same piece for about 2 months. So the process of making it sort of reflects what I was exploring within the work, this kind of idea of resistance and protest almost, and rejection of kind of the status quo, which is, like if I had done this kind of the traditional way, I've been spending so much on printing, I wouldn't actually have even been able to get the effect that I was looking for. So kind of those DIY word of mouth processes are really interesting. There's kind of this what I was saying earlier during the talk, just about swarms as a kind of a motif. So like language as a swarm of words, the internet is like this overwhelming presence of constantly there's information kind of swarming around you, and like insects taking that very literally, as well as drones, which this was all kind of viewing the kind of internet as this like aerial perspective, and these kind of poor images that I'm examining are kind of breaking through that mold and trying to resist that like commercialization and that kind of flattening and like the single lens that a lot of those things come from. So yeah, that's kind of where that kind of, that motif arose from. It's kind of more symbolic than literal in that sense. Right now I'm doing a lot of drawing in my practice just because I'm kind of limited spatially, but I think, the textiles will always have a place in my practice 100%. I think I'm interested in maybe mediating like drawing with the kind of fabric as the grounds as opposed to paper, like kind of like embroidery, like you can draw with an embroidery foot, like freehanding almost without like the clamp. So like that's on the sewing machine. So I think that could be kind of an interesting exploration. I really love artists ran spaces and kind of the autonomy that comes with that and the learning that you can get from, people who are in the industry and things like that. So I think kind of spaces like that, and maybe more kind of, I like the idea of maybe working outside of a gallery setting as well. Like at the beginning of final year, we did a project that was like situated in space somewhere. It's called Situated Practice. It was like site-specific work, and so I think I'd be interested in kind of doing more work in that kind of area outside maybe like traditional galleries. To not overthink it, that's the main thing. Like I was getting really bogged down with, does this mean enough conceptually, and is it legible to other people, and is this idea good enough? And then just kind of realizing that if it sparked some kind of interest for me and I enjoyed making the work, that'll come across in the piece, and like not every single aspect needs to be explained away almost, that like things can be left unsaid and even unthought about. Like not everything has, like I find myself poking holes in my work a lot of the time and just kind of taking that step back and realizing like you don't need to be so critical.
Fantastic. Well done.
Thank you so much. Let me give you this back.